Mr. Malcolmson.
Mr. Carnford.
You've been to see the property in question?
I have, sir.
Sit down, please.
Thank you.
Well, now, what do you think? Does it suit your purpose?
Perfectly.
I'm delighted, sir.
It's certainly isolated. How high is the surrounding wall? 12 feet, would you say?
Yeah, about that, yes.
The windows are unusually small and set very high up.
A Jacobean style.
Oh, of course. Well, I am delighted at what I saw.
To tell you the truth, Mr. Malcolmson, I should be only too happy on behalf of the owner to let anyone have the house rent-free, if only to accustom the people hereabouts to seeing it inhabited again. It's been empty for so long that some kind of absurd prejudice has grown up about it, and that can be best put down by its occupation. If only by a scholar like yourself, sir, who wants peace and quiet for a time.
Absurd prejudice, you say, Mr. Carnford?
Oh, nothing, Mr. Malcolmson, I assure you. It's only the prejudice that a house appears to instill in some people when standing empty for some time. Rumour, gossip about the reasons for it not being occupied. You know the sort of thing. Well, as I mentioned, I'll require a month's rent in advance.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I'll give you the necessary receipt.
Thank you. Oh, you mentioned to me when I inquired earlier that you know of a lady who would look after me while residing there.
Ah, yes, so I did. Mrs. Witham is her name. I'll write down her address for you.
The judge's house? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Malcolmson? Going to live in the judge's house?
If it's the small but rambling old house behind that high brick wall in Maybury Lane, then that is indeed the house in which I intend to stay, Mrs. Witham.
Well, sir, I don't know what to say.
You do not approve of my living there? It is only for a short while.
It's not for me to approve or disapprove, sir.
Clearly, though, the prospect gives you cause for concern. Well, Mrs. Witham?
I've never known anyone stay in the judge's house, sir.
It's called the judge's house?
By the locals, yes, sir.
Why, sir?
I don't know how long it's been called that. I'm not from these parts myself, but everyone I've known since coming to Benchurch has referred to it as such. It was the abode of a judge, 100 years or more ago, and he was held in great terror on account of his harsh sentences and his hostility to prisoners at the assizes. As to what there is against the house itself, I cannot tell, sir. I've often asked, but no one will inform me. There was a general feeling that there was something. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, for my disturbing talk, but if you were my boy, and you'll excuse me for saying it, you wouldn't sleep there a night. Not if I had to go there myself and pull the alarm bell that hangs from the roof.
Alarm bell? What alarm bell?
Did you not see it?
I can't say I did.
The rope hangs right down into the drawing room, right next to the judge's chair itself.
Well, Mrs. Witham, you needn't be concerned about me. A man who is reading for the mathematical tripos has too much to think about to be disturbed by any of these mysterious somethings. And his work is of too exact and prosaic a nature to allow for his having time for mysteries of any kind. Harmonical progressions and elliptic functions have sufficient mysteries for me, thank you.
Well, sir, I see you are determined to live there, then.
I am, Mrs. Witham, I am. So all we have to decide upon is whether you agree to make the necessary arrangements and find a housekeeper a little less apprehensive about the house than yourself.
Very good, sir. I'll order all the necessary provisions and arrange for a Mrs. Dempster to see to your needs.
Thank you, Mrs. Witham. You're most kind.
I've had enough provisions delivered to see you through the first 3 days, sir.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Witham. I've decided to make my main abode here in the drawing room. It's large enough to serve all my daily requirements, I think.
Where do you want these put?
What did you say her name was, Mrs. Witham?
Mrs. Dempster, sir. She'll do all your cleaning, fetching and carrying.
Just put them on the table there, Mrs. Dempster.
Well, there's another lot outside.
That's right. Books, Mrs. Dempster. All books. Just put them on the table.
Oh, very heavy they are.
That's enough, Mrs. Dempster. Just put them on the table as Mr. Malcolmson says.
Right, but you
Don't
know
you
how
stand
heavy those
any
books
nonsense
are.
from her, sir. She has a quick tongue, but she's a hard worker, and she'll keep the house as clean as a new pin.
I'm sure she will. You've been most kind, Mrs. Witham, especially with the provisions. I'll wager some of them came from your own kitchen.
It's the least I can do, sir.
Well, I'm very grateful.
Well, I wish you all the best for your stay, sir.
This the last lot, sir?
Yes, I think so, Mrs. Dempster.
As the bedroom is big and draughty, it might be as well to have one of those screens put round your bed at night, though, truth to tell, I would die myself if I were to be shut in with all kinds of things that put their heads round the sides and over the top to look at me. Oh, excuse me, sir, I'll be going.
Good day, Mrs. Witham, and please don't worry about me.
I'll tell you what, sir. Bogies is all kinds and sorts of things, except bogies. Rats, mice, beetles, creaky doors and loose slates, broken panes and stiff drawer handles that stay out when you pull 'em and then fall down in the middle of the night. There, you bogies. Look at that wainscot, hundreds of years old. Do you think, sir, you won't see none of 'em? Rats is bogies, and bogies is rats, and don't you get to thinking anything else.
Oh, Mrs. Dempster, you know more than many a prophet. And let me say that as a mark of my esteem for your indubitable soundness of head and heart, I shall, when I leave, give you possession of this house and let you stay here yourself for the last 2 months of my tenancy. For 4 weeks will serve my present purpose admirably.
Oh, thank you kindly, sir, but I couldn't sleep away from home. I'm in Greenhouse Charity Institution, and if I slept a night away from my rooms, I should lose all I've got to live on. Otherwise, I'd gladly come here and attend on you. The rules is very strict, sir.
My good woman, I have come here on purpose to obtain solitude, and believe me, I am grateful to the late Mr. Greenhow for having organised his admirable charity, whatever it is, that I am perforce denied the opportunity of suffering from such a form of temptation.
Oh, you young gentleman. You don't fear a thing, do you? Well, you'll get all the solitude you'll want here. Now, I'd better get you settled in before nightfall.
And while you do that, Mrs. Dempster, I will go for a walk.
The place will be all spick and span on your return, sir. I'll leave some food out for you on a tray and a fire in the hearth.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Dempster. You're most kind.
Now, be off with you. Otherwise I won't be finished in time.
$11. Must think about going to bed, I suppose. Oh, my tea's getting cold. Solitude. Listen to it. You can actually hear the silence. What's that?
Bogies is rats, and rats is bogies.
Of course. Rats in the wainscot. Listen to them. Racing, gnawing, scratching. For generations they've been doing that, I expect. And the rope. Thick, hard. All the way up to the great alarm bell in the roof. The judge thought of everything. Oh, they've stopped now. The rats have stopped their mischief for tonight. Another few minutes study. And then to bed. Oh, my God. Go away, rat. Go away, damn you. It doesn't move. It just stares at me. I'll throw a cup at it. Go away, damn you. It still doesn't move. It bares its teeth at me. The poker. I'll kill it with a poker. Now, you evil-looking monster, I'll kill you. Take that! Damn it. He scampered up the bell rope. My God. They've started again.
Sir? Mr. Malcolmson, sir?
What?
Oh, careful, sir. You nearly knocked the tray from my hand.
Oh, it's you, Mrs. Dempster. What time is it?
It's just gone 9, sir. I let you sleep when I arrived. It looked as if you'd been up most of the night.
I heard the cock crow before I turned in.
Oh, all that studying. You'll make yourself ill. Here's some breakfast for you.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Dempster. You're very kind.
Everything all right?
What do you mean, all right?
Last night. No bogies.
No bogies, Mrs. Dempster, none at all.
Oh, I'm pleased to hear it, I must say. I've tied it up downstairs so you can get up whenever you like.
Thank you, Mrs. Dempster. I think I'll go for a walk this morning.
You do that, sir. Mustn't study all the time. All work and no play, as the saying goes.
Yes. Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Malcolmson.
Oh, Mrs. Witham, good morning. Lovely day, isn't it?
Out for a walk, I see.
Well, I was studying most of last night, so I thought I'd take an hour or two off to clear the head and tone up the muscles.
Tell me, sir, how did you pass the night?
Very well, thank you, Mrs. Witham.
I'm pleased to hear it. I can't tell you how relieved I was when Mrs. Dempster told me you were well and sleeping sound when she went in first thing this morning.
Ah, you've been to the house then?
I've just come from there. I hope Mrs. Dempster's proving satisfactory.
More than satisfactory, thank you. No, Mrs. Witham, you'll be pleased to know that the somethings didn't worry me in the slightest. Only the rats, and they had a circus, I can tell you. All over the place they were. There was one particularly wicked-looking old devil that sat up on the big armchair by the fireplace and wouldn't go until I took a poker to him. And then he ran up the rope with the alarm bell and hid somewhere up the wall, or ceiling. I couldn't see. It was so dark up there.
Mercy honest, Mr. Malcolmson. An old devil and sitting on a chair by the fireside. Oh, take care, sir. You take care.
How do you mean, madam? I don't understand.
An old devil. The devil, perhaps. Oh, no, sir. Please don't laugh.
Forgive me, Mrs. Witham, and don't think me rude, but the idea was too much for me, that the devil himself was sitting in the chair last night. It's really too funny for words.
Let's hope so, Mr. Malcolmson. Good morning.
Good morning, Mrs. Witham.
Now I'm ready for him. The end of the rope lying on the table, under the lamp, and these books. Handy weapons to throw. Yes, I'm ready for you, you old devil. Like a rat trap. I think we shall learn something of you tonight. Time for a pot of tea, I think. Hello? The lamp moved. The rope. I won't move except my eyes. Ah, yes. Here he comes. Down the rope. The size of a devil. Enormous. The cheek of the monster. He's dropped from the rope and again he sits on the old oak chair staring at me. Right. I'll do for you this time. You better watch out. These books are heavy. Now, take that! Missed! He's afraid, he's afraid. Now this time I won't miss this time. I'll finish you, you ugly old monster. I hit him! Damn him, he's got away up that ceiling again. Where does he get to up there? He seemed to go through a hole in that great picture. It's so dirty I can't see what it's a picture of. I look at my friend's habitation in the morning. It's the third picture from the fireplace. I shan't forget. Better pick up my books. Let's see now. There. And the book that nearly felled him. The Bible my mother gave me. I think I'll ask Mrs. Dempster to clean that picture first thing in the morning.
Do sit down. down, Mr. Malcolmson.
Thank you.
It was good of you to come.
How could I reject such a request, madam, seeing how kind you've been to me?
You see, Dr. Thornhill, I told you he was utterly charming. Yet he remains very stubborn.
I understand you're taking an important mathematics examination fairly soon.
Yes, sir, I am. It is of such importance as to affect my entire future. Hence my desire for solitude before I return to college.
Education is of such importance, I agree. But does it require all the long hours you appear to give it?
Dr. Thornhill, I shall with pleasure answer any question you may choose to ask, if you will answer me one question first.
What is it?
Did Mrs. Witham ask you to come here and advise me?
Well, sir...
Mr. Malcolm.
Forgive me, but I suspect a trap.
Not a trap, sir.
Perhaps not, sir, but I do feel ensnared. Please do not be offended, Mrs. Witham. I am touched by your concern for my welfare.
If that is the case, Mr. Malcolmson, I feel I can answer your question with complete honesty. Mrs. Witham did, in fact, ask me to come here. But, of course, she didn't intend you to know it. I suppose it was my clumsy haste that made you suspect.
Excuse me, gentlemen.
I fear we have caused offence. Mrs. Witham doesn't like the idea of your being in that house in Maybury Lane all by yourself. She also thinks you take too much strong tea. In fact, she wants me to advise you, if possible, to give up the tea and the very late hours. I was a keen student in my time, so I feel I may take the liberty of an ex-college man and, without offence, advise you not quite as a stranger.
Shake hands, sir. I must thank you for your kindness, and Mrs. Witham's too, and it deserves a return gesture on my part. I promise to take no more strong tea, no tea at all, till you let me, and I shall go to bed tonight at 1 o'clock at the latest. Will that do?
Capital. Now, tell me all that you've noticed in the old house. And the rat always climbs down the rope of the alarm bell?
Always.
I suppose you know what the rope is?
No.
It is the very rope which the hangman used for all the victims of the judge's judicial rancour.
Doctor, please. There's no need to be embarrassed, Doctor. I was listening. I admit it.
If you would excuse me, I must return. It's nearly luncheon.
Very well, sir.
I'm sure you and Mrs. Witham have a great deal to talk about. Good day, Doctor.
Sir.
Mrs. Witham.
Mr. Malcolmson.
And please, don't worry. I shall be perfectly all right. No more tea, and in bed by 1. You'll see. Good day. I'll see myself out.
This has not turned out as I planned at all. I'm surprised at you, Dr. Thornhill. You know how impressionable young people are.
He may be young, but to all intents and purposes, madam, he is a free man, and a man of means, too. Besides, I had a distinct purpose in drawing his attention to the alarm bell rope. It may be that he is in a highly overwrought state, and has been studying too much. Although I'm bound to say that he seems as sound and healthy a young man, mentally and bodily, as ever I saw. But then, the rats, and that suggestion of the devil. I would have offered to go and stay the night with him, except that I felt it would have given him offence. In the night, he may get some strange fright or hallucination. And if he does, I want him to pull that rope. All alone as he is, it will give us warning, and we may reach him in time to be of service. I shall be sitting up pretty late tonight, and shall keep my ears open.
What do you mean, Doctor?
I mean this, dear lady, that possibly, nay, more, probably, we shall hear the great alarm bell from the judge's house tonight. If I can believe all that Mr. Malcolmson has told me.
Mrs. Dempster! Mrs. Dempster? Oh, she must have left.
Dinner all set, I see. Everything ready. Bless the dear lady. I think I'll have a glass of sherry before I eat. And then I will study some more. Oh, this is pleasant. A good sherry and peace. The rats have returned. Ah, yes, there you are, my friend. The biggest rat of them all, I wager, with those baleful eyes, those sharp teeth, watching. You've frightened the others away, haven't you? It's just you and me, eh? Well, I'm going to have my dinner. You're not going to put me off that. The storm's blowing up, it seems. But it's nice and cosy in here, eh, rat? Yes, I'm talking to you. Perched up there in the shadows, I can see the glint in your wicked eyes. You'd like to share this with me, wouldn't you? And Mrs. Dempster's veal and ham pies for me. All for me. What's that? Oh, it's you, eh? Rat. Hurrying back whence you came. I must have fallen asleep. The wine and the food. Let me take a look at your hiding place. I'll turn out the lamp. I wonder if Mrs. Dempster's cleaned the picture like I asked her to. We should see it more clearly. I'll have to mount this chair and hold the lamp up higher. And there. My God. A portrait of the judge. His face. It makes the flesh creep. So merciless, evil and vindictive. And the nose. Hooked like a bird of prey. And those eyes. They're just like the rat. They pierce right through me. Dear God, I wish I hadn't asked Mrs. Dempster to clean it. Better that the face was covered with the grime of years than be seen by mortals. Oh! Damn the chair! It gave way under me. I can't see a thing now. Damn! What's that? Oh, so there you are. On the bell rope. Oh, I must find another lamp. Oh, God, I'm shaking. Dear God, I'm actually shaking. Oh, this will not do. If I go on like this, I shall become a crazy fool. This must stop. I promised the doctor I would not take tea. He was right. My nerves must have been getting into a state. Funny, I didn't notice it. Oh. Right. I shall not be such a fool again. Oh, I'm tired. I can't see to read anymore. I'm so fatigued. What? You're there again, rat. I see you. What are you doing? My God, you've gnawed through the rope. Stop it! Stop it! You devil, I'll get you. I'll get you, you fiend. Where are my books? Take that! The lightning! What's happening? The picture! He's gone. The judge has gone from the picture.
I'm here, Malcolmson.
Oh, my God.
I am here, about to give sentence.
You're not real. You're... Quiet, for God's sake, be quiet.
Malcolmson, look at me.
No, you're not real. You're not... The black cap. The rope. What are you doing? What do you want? Keep away. Keep away.
Please tell me, Doctor. I want to know.
I dare not, madam. It was too horrible.
I must know, sir. Please.
He hanged himself.
Hanged himself?
From the bell rope. He had stood on the judge's chair, put the noose around his neck, and then apparently kicked the chair away.
Oh, my God.
Who would have thought it? It was the weight of his own body that gave the alarm as he swung.
All right, Doctor, no more, I pray you.
And there was something else.
What was that?
Probably my imagination, of course. But the judge's picture, the huge portrait high up on the wall. I'd never noticed it, but do you remember a smile on the judge's face? I don't. But there it was. A smile. A malignant smile.
The Judge's House by Bram Stoker, with Nigel Havers as Malcolmson and Nancy Nevinson as Mrs. Dempster. Jane Thompson was Mrs. Witham. Other parts were played by David Timpson and Alexander John. The Judge's House was a BBC World Service drama production directed by Derek Hodinott.
When Margaret Delander went to live at Brent Rock, the whole neighbourhood awoke to the pleasure of an entirely new scandal. The Delanders had an ancient record and were proud of it in their way as the Brents were of theirs. But the family had never risen above yeomanry, and although they had once been well-to-do, their fortunes had withered. In process of time, all disappeared, leaving only two in the croft, Wickham Delander and his sister Margaret. The man and woman seemed to have inherited the evil tendency of their race, sharing in common the principles of sullen passion, voluptuousness, and recklessness. The history of the Brents had been something similar, but showing the causes of decadence in their aristocratic and not their plebeian forms. The present head of the family was Geoffrey Brent. So long as Geoffrey confined his dissipations to London and Paris and Vienna, opinion was silent. But when the scandal came close home, it was another matter. Wickham Delander had quarrelled with his sister, and they were on terms not merely of armed neutrality, but of bitter hatred. And in the end, Wickham, overcome with passion, had ordered his sister to leave his house. Some weeks passed, and it was understood in the neighbourhood that Margaret had gone to London, when she suddenly appeared, driving out with Geoffrey Brent, and the entire neighbourhood knew before nightfall that she had taken up her abode at the Rock. Neither Margaret nor Geoffrey was of a pacific temperament, and it was not long before there began to be quarrels between them. They made occasional absences from Brent's Rock, but there came a time when the absence became longer than before. Only a few days earlier there had been a quarrel, more bitter than any which had preceded it. But this had been made up, and a trip on the continent had been mentioned before the servants. Week after week went by, and month after month. And then there came a rumour that an accident had occurred in the Zermatt Valley. Whilst crossing a dangerous pass, the carriage containing an English lady and the driver had fallen over a precipice, the gentleman of the party, Mr. Geoffrey Brent, having been fortunately saved, as he had been walking up the hill to ease the horses. He gave information, and search was made. The broken rail, the marks where the horses had struggled on the decline before finally pitching over into the torrent, all told the sad tale. Finally, the wreck of the carriage and the body of one horse were found in an eddy of the river. Later on, the body of the driver was found, but the body of the lady, like that of the other horse, had disappeared. Wickham Delander made all the inquiries possible, but could not find any trace of the missing woman. He found, however, in the books of the various hotels the name of Mr. and Mrs. Geoffrey Brent, and he had a stone erected at Zermatt to his sister's memory under her married name. There was a lapse of nearly a year. Brent was still absent, and Delander more drunken, more morose, and more revengeful than before. Then there was a new excitement. Brent Rock was being made ready for a new mistress. Then a small army of workmen invaded the house. Scaffolding poles and boards were brought in and laid on one side of the great hall, and also a great wooden tank for mixing the lime, which was laid in bags beside it. When the new mistress of Brent's Rock arrived, the bells of the church rang out. She was a beautiful creature, and the few English words which she had learned were spoken in such a way that she won the hearts of the people almost as much by the music of her voice as by the melting beauty of her dark eyes. And so months passed, and the whisper grew that at last Brent's Rock was to have an heir. Geoffrey was very tender to his wife, and the new bond between them seemed to soften him. All the time, Wickham Delander nursed his revenge. One night he sat alone in the living room of his house. He had been drinking heavily for some time and was more than half stupefied. Presently he sank into a daze, but suddenly awoke to see standing before him someone or something like a battered, ghostly edition of his sister. The woman before him, with distorted features and burning eyes, seemed hardly human, and the only thing that seemed a reality of his sister was her wealth of golden hair, now streaked with grey. "Why are you here? You're dead and buried." "I am here, Wickham Delander, for no love of you, but because I hate another even more than I do you." A great passion blazed in her eyes. "Did he marry you? I have come here tonight simply to let you know that I am alive, so that if any violence be done me where I am going, there may be a witness." "Where are you going?" "That is my affair." Wickham stood up, but the drink was on him, and he reeled and fell. As he lay on the floor, he told her that he would follow her through the darkness by the light of her hair and of her beauty. At this she turned on him, and said that there were others beside him that would rue her hair and her beauty too. "As he will," she hissed, "for the hair remains, though the beauty be gone. When he withdrew the linchpin and sent us over the precipice into the torrent, he had little thought of my beauty." And with a fierce gesture she flung open the door and passed out into the night. Later on that night, Mrs. Brent became suddenly awake and spoke to her husband. "Geoffrey, was not that the click of a lock somewhere below our window?" But Geoffrey, though she thought that he too had started at the noise, seemed sound asleep and breathed heavily. Again Mrs. Brent dozed, but this time awoke to the fact that her husband had arisen and was partially dressed. He was deadly pale. She was frightened at the look in his eyes. "What is it, Geoffrey?" she asked. "Go to sleep. I am restless and wish to finish some work I left undone." He went out, closing the door behind him. She lay awake for a while, and then nature asserted itself and she slept. Suddenly she started broad awake, with the memory in her ears of a smothered cry from somewhere not far off. There was a long pause of silence, and then the sound of some iron implement striking muffled blows. Then there came a clang of a heavy stone falling, followed by a muffled curse. She heard a curious sort of scraping sound, and then there was silence. Presently the door opened gently, and Geoffrey appeared. His wife pretended to be asleep, but through her eyelashes she saw him wash from his hands something white that looked like lime. In the morning, he made no allusion to the previous night, and she was afraid to ask any questions. From that day, the old hall seemed to have some kind of fascination for him. He used to go there many times in the day, but grew impatient if anyone, even his wife, entered it. The builder's foreman came to inquire about continuing his work.
I see, sir, there's a bit of damage which our people must have done, but the governor would, of course, see it set right at his own cost.
What do you mean?
Well, that here hearthstone, sir, some idiot must have put a scaffold pole on it and cracked it right down the middle.
Tell your people that I am not going on with the work in the hall at present. I want to leave it as it is for a while longer. So the foreman went away, and his comment to his master was,
I'd send the bill, sir, for the work already done. Appears to me that money's a little shaky in that quarter.
That night, when Geoffrey went into the hall, he bent down over the broken hearthstone. Then with a groan of anguish, he sank to his knees. There, sure enough, through the crack in the broken stone, were protruding a multitude of threads of golden hair tinged with grey. He was disturbed by a noise at the door, and looking round, saw his wife standing in the doorway. He lit a match at the lamp, stooped down and burned away the hair that rose through the broken stone. Then, rising nonchalantly, he pretended surprise at seeing his wife beside him. One evening, his wife came into the hall after her drive, and found him there sitting moodily by the deserted fireplace.
Geoffrey, I have been spoken to by that fellow Delander, and he says horrible things. He tells to me that a week ago his sister returned to his house. He asked me where she is, and oh, Geoffrey, she's dead, so how can she have returned?
For answer, Geoffrey burst into a torrent of blasphemy which made her shudder, but suddenly stopped as he saw a new look of terror in his wife's eyes. He followed their glance, and then he too shuddered. For there, on the broken hearthstone, lay a golden streak as the point of the hair rose through the crack.
Look, she shrieked. Is it some ghost of the dead? Come away!
That night, she was in a raging fever. The doctor of the district attended her at once. Geoffrey was in despair and almost forgot his own crime and its consequences. In the evening, the doctor left Geoffrey in charge of his wife.
Remember, you must humour her till I come in the morning. What you have to dread is another attack of emotion.
Late in the evening, when the rest of the household had retired, Geoffrey's wife got up from her bed and called to her husband.
"Come," she said, "come to the old hall. I know where the gold comes from. I want to see it grow."
Geoffrey would fain have stopped her, but he feared for her life or reason, and seeing that it was useless to try to prevent her, wrapped a warm rug around her and went with her to the old hall. When they entered, she turned and shut the door and locked it.
"We want no strangers amongst us three tonight,"
she whispered with a wan smile.
"We three? Nay, we are but two,"
said Geoffrey with a shudder.
"Sit here,"
said his wife as she put out the light.
"Sit here by the hearth and watch the gold growing. The silver moonlight is jealous. See, it steals along the floor toward the gold, our gold."
Geoffrey looked with growing horror, and saw that during the hours that had passed, the golden hair had protruded further through the broken hearthstone.
"Now do not stir, dear," she said. "Let us sit still and watch. we shall find the secret of the growing gold. He passed his arm round her and sat silent. And as the moonlight stole along the floor, she sank to sleep. Before his horror-struck eyes, the golden hair from the broken stone grew and grew, and as it increased, so his heart got colder and colder, till at last he had not power to stir, and sat with eyes full of terror, watching his doom. In the morning they were found by the servant. The little Cornish port of Pencastle was bright in the early April, when the sun had seemingly come to stay after a long and bitter winter. The little harbour opened from the sea between towering cliffs, and behind a lonely rock pierced with many caves and blowholes through which the sea in storm time sent its thunderous voice. 2 men lived in cottages exactly opposite each other, both young, both good-looking, both prosperous, who had been companions and rivals from their boyhood. Abel Behenna was dark, Eric Sanson was fair. These 2 seemed to have singled out each other from the very beginning to work and strive together. They had now put the coping stone on their temple of unity by falling in love with the same girl, Sarah Trefusis, who was certainly the prettiest girl in Pencastle. At length, there came a time which Sarah dreaded, the time when she had to make her choice between the 2 men. She liked them both, and indeed either of them might have satisfied the ideas of even a more exacting girl. Sarah's mother was a person of commonplace and sordid ideas, and she was not surprised when her mother whispered to her in the little yard behind the house, "Go up the hillside for a while. I want to talk to these 2. They're both red hot for ye, and now's the time to get things fixed." So Sarah went up the hillside through the narrow paths between the golden firs, and Mrs. Trefusis joined the 2 men in the living room of the little house. Now, neither of ye has much, but if he'd put what he both have together, he'd make a comfortable home for one of ye and Sarah. Why don't he toss up for her? First, put your money together. You've each got a bit put by, I know. Let the lucky man take the lot and trade with it a bit, and then come home and marry her. With some reluctance, the 2 men agreed. Mrs. Trefusis's little cunning eyes twinkled. "Well, here she comes, and I leave it to her." And she went out. Sarah insisted that they should accompany her to the Flagstaff Rock, where they would be alone. And here, after a certain amount of acrimonious discussion, Abel said, "Eric, you hold the coin, and I'll cry. Now, before we settle it, let us clearly understand. The man who wins takes all the money that we both have got, brings it to Bristol, and ships on a voyage and trades with it. Then he comes back and marries Sarah." "I'll marry him on my next birthday," said Sarah. "Toss," cried Abel, and the coin spun in the air. Eric caught it and held it between his outstretched hands. "Heads," cried Abel, a pallor sweeping over his face as he spoke. Eric lifted his upper hand. The coin lay with its head up. Abel stepped forward and took Sarah in his arms. With a curse, Eric hurled the coin far into the sea.
Presently, Abel looked up and caught sight of Eric's face as the last ray of sunset struck it. It was my chance, old lad. Don't grudge it to me. I'll try to make Sarah happy, woman. You have a year. Make the most of it. And be sure you're in time to claim your wife. Be back to have your banns up in time to be married on the 11th of April. If you're not, I tell you I shall have my banns up, and you may get back too late. What do you mean, Eric? You're mad. No more mad than you are, Abel Behenna. You go, that's your chance. I stay, that's mine. You won by a point only. The game may change. The game won't change, said Abel shortly. Sarah, you'll be true to me? You won't marry till I return? I promise, for the year, said Sarah. A dark look came over Abel's face, and he was about to speak, but he mastered himself and smiled. I mustn't be too hard or get angry tonight. Come, Eric. I won fairly. And now when I'm going away, I shall look to my old and true comrade to help me when I am gone. I'll help you none. So help me God. It was God helped me, said Abel simply. Then let him go on helping you. The devil is good enough for me. When he had gone, Abel hoped for some tender passage with Sarah, but the first remark she made chilled him. How lonely it all seems without Eric. Early on the next morning, Abel heard a noise at his door. A small canvas bag full of gold and silver lay on the threshold. On a small slip of paper pinned to it was written, Take the money and go. I stay. Remember the 11th of April. Eric Sanson. That afternoon, Abel went off to Bristol, and a week later sailed on the Star of the Sea, bound for Pahang. As the year wore on, Sarah became more and more disturbed in her mind. Eric was always at hand to make love to her in his own persistent, masterful manner, and to this she did not object. Only one letter came from Abel, to say that his venture had proved successful and that he had sent some £200 to the bank at Bristol. The 11th of April was Saturday, so that in order to have the marriage on that day, it would be necessary that the banns should be called on Sunday the 22nd of March. From the beginning of that month, Eric kept perpetually on the subject of Abel's absence, and his outspoken opinion that the latter was either dead or married began to become a reality to the woman's mind. I told Abel, and you too, that if he was not here to put up his banns in time for the 11th, I would put up mine for the 12th. He hasn't kept his word. Here Sarah struck in out of her weakness and indecision. He hasn't broken it yet. During the week, no news was heard of Abel, and on Saturday, Eric gave notice of the banns of marriage between himself and Sarah Trefusis. The banns were read a second time on the 29th, and Eric's hope grew more and more fixed, though there were to him moments of acute despair when he realized that the cup of happiness might be dashed from his lips at any moment, right up to the last. On the Thursday of that week, he looked in on Sarah and found her, amid a flood of sunshine, putting finishing touches to her white wedding gown. Bending over, he kissed Sarah on the mouth, and then whispered in her rosy ear, Your wedding dress, Sarah, and for me. Perhaps not for you. There's more than a week yet for Abel. And then cried out in dismay, for with a wild gesture and a fierce oath, Eric dashed out of the house, banging the door behind him. That night, at dusk, a wild storm came on, and the lovely Alice, a ketch trading between Bristol and Penzance, rushed to her doom on the great island rock that guarded the mouth of the port. Eric, who was among the watchers, took a rope and shouted in the ear of the harbour-master,
I shall go down on the rock over the seal cave. The tide is running up, and someone may drift in there. Keep back, man, came the answer. Are you mad? Not a bit, came the reply. You remember how Abel Behenna saved me there on a night like this, and how someone may drift in there again as I did. And he was gone into the darkness. He shortly stood on the great round-topped rock over the entrance of the seal cave, where the water was fathomless. As he stood there ready, with his coil of rope poised to throw, he thought he heard below him a faint, despairing cry. He flung his rope out into the darkness where he had seen a face rising through the swirl of the foam. The rope was caught, for he felt a pull on it, and he shouted again in his mighty voice, "Tie it round your waist, I shall pull you up." Eric Sanson and Abel Behenna were face to face, and none knew of the meeting save themselves and God. On the instant, a wave of passion swept through Eric's heart. All his hopes were shattered. He saw in the instant of recognition the joy in Abel's face, that his was the hand to succour him. Whilst the passion was on him, he started back, and the rope ran out between his hands. Abel, encumbered with the rope that should have aided him, was plunged with a despairing cry back into the darkness of the devouring sea. Then, feeling all the madness and the doom of Cain upon him, Eric rushed back over the rocks, heedless to the danger and eager only for one thing, to be amongst other people whose living noises would shut out that last cry which seemed to ring still in his ears. When he regained the Flagstaff Rock, the men surrounded him, and through the fury of the storm he heard the harbour master say, "We feared you were lost when we heard a cry. How white you are! Where's your rope? Was there anyone drifted in?" "No one," he cried. "I slept on the rock, and the rope fell into the sea." So saying, he left them, and rushing down the steep path, gained his own cottage and locked himself within. In the morning, the storm was over, and all was smiling again. 2 bodies also drifted into the harbour, one the master of the wrecked ketch, the other a strange seaman who no one knew. Sarah saw nothing of Eric till the evening. He did not come into the house, but simply put his head in through the open window. "Well, Sarah?" he called out in a loud voice, though to her it did not ring truly. "Is the wedding dress done? Sunday week, mine." "If Abel isn't there on Saturday." She saw Eric no more till Sunday afternoon, after the banns had been called the 3rd time, when he came up to her before all the people with a proprietary air which half pleased and half annoyed her. "Not yet, mister," she said, pushing him away as the other girls giggled. At last, Sunday morning came. Eric arose early and dressed himself in his wedding clothes. He seemed as though he had grown years older in the last few days. Still, there was a wild, uneasy light of triumph in his eyes, and he kept murmuring to himself over and over again, "This is my wedding day. Abel cannot claim her now, living or dead." In the church, he sat with Sarah and her mother, holding Sarah's hand tightly as though he feared to lose her. When the service was over, they stood up together and were married in the presence of the entire congregation, for no one left the church. Both made the responses clearly, Eric's being even on the defiant side. The way from the church led down to the back of Eric's cottage, a narrow passage being between it and that of his next neighbour. When the bridal couple had passed through this, the remainder of the congregation was startled by a long, shrill scream from the bride. They rushed through the passage and found her on the bank with wild eyes, pointing to the riverbed opposite Eric Sanson's door. The falling tide had deposited there the body of Abel Behenna, stark upon the broken rocks. The rope
trailing from its waist, had been twisted by the current round the mooring post, and had held it back whilst the tide had ebbed away from it. The right elbow had fallen in a chink in the rock, leaving the hand outstretched towards Sarah, with the open palm upward, as though it were extended. I had decided to go for a drive, and when we started, the sun was shining brightly in Munich. Just as we were about to depart, Herr Delbruck, the maître d'hôtel of the Quatre Saisons, where I was staying, came down bareheaded to the carriage and said to the coachman, "Remember, you are back by nightfall. You know what night it is." Johann answered with an emphatic, "Ja, mein Herr." When we had cleared the town, I said, after signalling to him to stop, "Tell me, Johann, what is tonight?" He crossed himself as he answered laconically, "Walpurgis Nacht." He started off rapidly, as if to make up for lost time. The road was pretty bleak, for we were traversing a sort of high, wind-swept plateau. As we drove, I saw a road which seemed to dip through a little winding valley. It looked so inviting that I called Johann to stop and told him I would like to drive down that road. He made all sorts of excuses, and frequently crossed himself as he spoke. Finally I said, "Well, Johann, I want to go down this road. I shall not ask you to come unless you like. But tell me why you do not like to go. That is all I ask." For answer, he stretched out his hands appealingly to me, and implored me not to go. I tried to argue with him, but it was difficult to argue with a man when I did not know his language. Whilst we were talking, we heard a sort of sound between a yelp and a bark. It was far away, but the horses got very restless, and it took Johann all his time to quiet them. He was pale, and said, "It sounds like a wolf, but there are no wolves here now." Whilst he was petting the horses and trying to quiet them, dark clouds drifted rapidly across the sky. Johann looked under his lifted hand at the horizon and said, "The storm of snow. He comes before a long time." Then he looked at his watch again and climbed to his box as though the time had come for proceeding on our journey. "Tell me," I said, "about this place where the road leads." "It is unholy." "What is unholy?" "The village." "Then there is a village." No one lives there hundreds of years." "But you said there was a village." "There was." "Where is it now?" Whereupon he burst out into a long story in German and English. Roughly, I gathered that long ago, hundreds of years, men had died there and been buried in their graves, and sounds were heard under the clay. And when the graves were opened, men and women were found rosy with life, and their mouths red with blood. And so, those who were left fled away to other places, where the living lived, and the dead were dead, and not something. He was evidently afraid to speak the last words. Finally, in an agony of desperation, he cried, "Walpurgis Nacht," and pointed to the carriage for me to get in. I took my oak walking stick, which I always carry on my holiday excursions, and pointing back to Munich said, "Go home, Johann. Walpurgis Night does not concern Englishmen." With a despairing gesture, Johann turned his horses towards Munich. He went slowly along the road for a while. Then there came over the crest of the hill a man, tall and thin. When he drew near the horses, they began to jump and kick about, then to scream with terror. Johann could not hold them in. They bolted down the road, running away madly. I watched them out of sight, then looked for the stranger, but I found that he too was gone. With a light heart, I turned down the side road. I took little heed of time, and it was only when the deepening twilight forced itself upon me that I began to think of how I should find my way home. The brightness of the day had gone. The air was cold, and the drifting of clouds high overhead was more marked. They were accompanied by a sort of far-away, rushing sound, through which seemed to come at intervals that mysterious cry which the driver had said came from a wolf. For a while I hesitated. I had said I would see the deserted village, so on I went, and presently came on a wide stretch of open country shut in by hills all around. As I looked, there came a cold shiver in the air, and the snow began to fall. The wind grew stronger and blew with ever-increasing force, till I was fain to run before it. Every now and then the heavens were torn asunder by vivid lightning, and in the flashes I could see ahead of me a great mass of trees, chiefly yew and cypresses, all heavily coated with snow. I was soon amongst the shelter of the trees. By and by, the storm seemed to be passing away. It now only came in fierce puffs or blasts. At such moments, the weird sound of the wolf appeared to be echoed by many similar sounds around me. As the snow had ceased to fall, I walked out from the shelter and began to investigate more closely. As I skirted the edge of the copse, I found that a low wall encircled it, and following this, I presently found an opening. Here, the cypresses formed an alley leading up to a square mass of some kind of building. Suddenly, the moonlight broke through the clouds, showing me that I was in a graveyard, and that the square object before me was a great massive tomb of marble, as white as the snow that lay on and all around it. I walked around it and read, over the Doric door, in German, Countess Dollingen of Gratz, in Styria, sought and found death, 1801. On the top of the tomb, seemingly driven through the solid marble, was a great iron spike or stake. On going to the back, I saw, graven in great Russian letters, "The dead travel fast." I began to wish for the first time that I had taken Johann's advice. Here a thought struck me. This was Walpurgis night. Walpurgis night, when, according to the belief of millions of people, the devil was abroad. When the graves were opened and the dead came forth and walked. This was the depopulated village of centuries ago. This was where the suicide lay, and this was the place where I was alone, shivering with cold in a shroud of snow, with a wild storm gathering again upon me. And now a perfect tornado burst upon me, hailstones that beat down leaf and branch and made the shelter of the cypresses useless. I was soon fain to seek the only spot that seemed to afford refuge, the deep Doric doorway of the marble tomb. As I leaned against the door, it moved slightly and opened inwards. I was about to enter it when there came a flash of forked lightning. In the instant I saw, as my eyes were turned into the darkness of the tomb, a beautiful woman with rounded cheeks and red lips, seemingly sleeping on a bier. As the thunder broke overhead, I was grasped as by the hand of a giant and hurled out into the storm. Just then there came another blinding flash, which seemed to strike the iron stake that surmounted the tomb and to pour through to the earth, blasting and crumbling the marble as in a burst of flame. The dead woman rose for a moment of agony while she was lapped in the flame, and her bitter scream of pain was drowned in the thunder crash. The last thing I heard was the howling of wolves. The last sight that I remembered was a vague, white, moving mass, as if all the graves around me had sent out the phantoms of their sheeted dead, and that they were closing in on me through the white cloudiness of the driving hail. Gradually,
there came a sort of vague beginning of consciousness. Then a sense of weariness that was dreadful. My feet seemed positively racked with pain, yet I could not move them. Some heavy weight on my chest made it difficult for me to breathe. A vast stillness enveloped me, as though all the world were asleep or dead, only broken by the low panting as of some animal close to me. I felt a warm rasping at my throat. Then came a consciousness of the awful truth. Some great animal was lying on me and now licking my throat. Through my eyelashes I saw above me the two great flaming eyes of a gigantic wolf. Its sharp white teeth gleamed in the gaping red mouth, and I could feel its hot breath fierce and acrid upon me. For another spell of time I remembered no more. Then I became conscious of a low growl, followed by a yelp, renewed again and again. Then, seemingly far away, I heard a "Hello! Hello!" as of many voices calling in unison. As the voices drew closer, the wolf yelped faster and louder. I feared to make either sound or motion. Then, all at once, from beyond the trees there came, at a trot, a troop of horsemen bearing torches. The wolf rose from my breast and made for the cemetery. I saw one of the horsemen raise his carbine and take aim. A companion knocked up his arm, and I heard the ball whiz over my head. He had evidently taken my body for that of the wolf. Then, at a gallop, the troop rode forward, some towards me, others following the wolf as it disappeared among the snow-clad cypresses. 2 or 3 of the soldiers jumped from their horses and knelt beside me. One of them raised my head and placed his hand over my heart. "Good news, comrades," he cried. "His heart still beats." Then some brandy was poured down my throat. Lights and shadows were moving among the trees, and I heard men call to one another. And the lights flashed as the others came pouring out of the cemetery, pell-mell, like men possessed. When the further ones came close to us, those who were around me asked them eagerly, "Well, have you found it?" The reply rang out hurriedly, "No, no, come away, quick! This is no place to stay, and on this of all nights!" The officer looked at my throat and said, "He's all right. The skin is not pierced. We should never have found him but for the yelping of that wolf." "What became of it?" asked the man who was holding up my head. "It went to its home," answered a man who actually shook with terror as he glanced around him fearfully. "There are graves enough there in which it may lie." The officer told the men to say nothing of what they had seen, except that they had found an English stranger guarded by a large dog. "Dog? That was no dog!" cut in the man who had exhibited such fear. "I think I know a wolf when I see one." "A dog, as I said. If aught else was said, we should only be laughed at." I was then mounted behind a trooper, and we rode back to Munich. When we arrived, Herr Delbruck rushed so quickly down the steps to meet me that it was apparent he had been watching within. Taking me by both hands, he solicitously led me in. The officer saluted me, and was turning to withdraw when I recognized his purpose, and insisted that he should come to my rooms. Over a glass of wine, I warmly thanked him and his brave comrades for saving me. "But, Herr Delbruck, how did you know I was lost?" I asked. "The driver came hither with the remains of his carriage, which had been upset when the horses ran away. But surely you would not send a search party of soldiers merely on this account?" "Oh, no," he answered. "But even before the coachman arrived, I had this telegram from the nobleman whose guest you are." And he took from his pocket a telegram which he handed to me, and I read. "Be careful of my guest. His safety is most precious to me. Should aught happen to him, or if he be missed, spare nothing to find him and ensure his safety. He is English and therefore adventurous. There are often dangers from... The first opinion given to me regarding Jacob Settle was a simple descriptive statement. He's a down-in-the-mouth chap. But I found that it embodied the thoughts and ideas of all his fellow workmen. As I saw more of the place and the workmen, I came to have a special interest in him. He led a very solitary life, keeping house by himself in a tiny cottage far on the edge of the moorland. In time, Jacob Settle and I became quite friends. Once or twice as I crossed the moorland on Sundays, I looked in on him. He would never, under any circumstances, come into my own lodgings. One Sunday afternoon I was coming back from a long walk beyond the moor, and as I passed Settle's cottage, stopped at the door to say how do you do to him. To my surprise, I heard a feeble voice from within. I entered at once, and found Jacob lying half-dressed upon his bed. He was as pale as death, and the sweat was simply rolling off his face. His hands were unconsciously gripping the bedclothes as a drowning man holds on to whatever he may grasp. I sat down beside him and asked after his health. For a while he would not answer me, except to say that he was not ill. But then he half arose on his elbow and said, "I thank you kindly, sir, but I'm simply telling you the truth. I am suffering from a bad dream." "A bad dream," I said. "But dreams pass away with the light, even with waking." No, that's all well for people that live in comfort, and with those they love around them. 2 nights past have I dreamed it. It was hard enough the first night, but I came through it. Last night I stayed awake till just before the dawn, and then it came again. And ever since I have been in such an agony as I am sure the dying feel, and with it all the dread of tonight. I tried to cheer him. "Try and get to sleep early tonight. The sleep will refresh you, and I promise you there will not be any bad dreams after tonight." He shook his head hopelessly, so I sat a little longer and then left him. When I got home, I made my arrangements for the night, for I had made up my mind to share Jacob Settle's lonely vigil in his cottage on the moor. Just as the bells of the city were striking 11, I stood opposite his door armed with a bag in which were my supper, an extra-large flask, a couple of candles, and a book. I opened the door softly and entered without waking Jacob, who lay asleep with his white face upward. He was still and again bathed in sweat. I waited for the awakening. It came suddenly, and in a fashion which touched me to the quick, for the hollow groan that broke from the man's white lips as he half arose and sank back was manifestly the realization of some train of thought which had gone before. "If this be dreaming," said I to myself, "then it must be based on some very terrible reality." At that moment he realized that I was with him. With a positive cry of joy he seized my hand and held it in his 2 wet, trembling hands, as a frightened child clings on to someone whom it loves. There, it's all right. I have come to stay with you tonight, and together we will try to fight this evil dream." "Fight it? Oh, no, sir, no, for it comes from God and is burned in here." And he beat upon his forehead. "What is the dream?" I asked. "No, I had better not tell it. It may not come again." "But if it should come again, you will tell me, will you not?" "If it comes again, I shall tell you all."
Then I tried to get his mind away to more mundane things, so I produced supper and made him share it with me, including the contents of the flask. Little by little, the comfort of his body stole over his mind, and I could see sleep laying her gentle hands on his eyelids. By degrees, I got interested in my book. So interested that presently I was startled by its dropping out of my hands. I looked, and saw that Jacob was still asleep, and I was rejoiced to see that there was on his face a look of unwonted happiness. Then I turned to my work again, and again woke, but this time to feel chilled to my very marrow by hearing the voice from the bed beside me.
"Not with those red hands."
On looking at him, I found that he was still asleep. He woke, however, in an instant.
"Settle, tell me your dream. While we both live, I shall never mention what you may choose to tell me."
But I had better tell you first what goes before the dream. I was a schoolmaster when I was a very young man. It was only a parish school in a little village in the West Country. I was engaged to be married to a young girl whom I loved and almost reverenced. It was the old story. While we were waiting for the time when we could afford to set up house together, another man came along. He was handsome and a gentleman, with all a gentleman's attractive ways for a woman of our class. He would go fishing, and she would meet him while I was at my work in school. I reasoned with her and implored her to give him up, but she would not listen to anything I could say. Then I took it upon myself to meet the man in a lonely spot. I implored him to deal well with the girl, for what might be only a pastime of an idle hour with him might be the breaking of her heart. But when I asked him when he intended to marry her, his laughter galled me so that I lost my temper, and told him that I would not stand by and see her life made unhappy. Then he grew angry too, and in his anger said such cruel things of her that then and there I swore he should not live to do her harm. God knows how it came about, but I found myself standing over his dead body, with my hands crimson with the blood that welled from his torn throat. No one suspected his absence, except my poor Mabel, and she dared not speak. But it was all in vain, for when I came back again after an absence of months, for I could not live in the place, I learned that her shame had come, and that she had died in it. Hitherto, I had been borne up by the thought that my ill deed had saved her future, but now, when I learned that I had been too late, and that my poor love was smirched with that man's sin, I fled away, with the sense of my useless guilt upon me more heavily than I could bear. Ah, sir, you that have not done such a sin don't know what it is to carry it with you. Ordinary men, to whom all things are possible, don't often, if ever, think of heaven. It is a name, and nothing more. But to those who are doomed to be shut out forever, you cannot think what it means. And this brings me to my dream. It seemed that the portal was before me, with great gates of massive steel rising to the very clouds. My heart and my soul were so full of rapture and longing that I forgot. And there stood two mighty angels with sweeping wings and stern of countenance. They held each in one hand a flaming sword, and in the other the latchet. Nearer were figures all draped in black, and they handed to each who came white garments such as the angels wear. I was eager to don my own garment, and hurriedly threw it over me, and stepped swiftly to the gate. But it moved not, and the angels pointed to my dress. I looked down, and was aghast, for the whole robe was smeared with blood. My hands were red. They glittered with the blood that dripped from them as on that day by the river bank.
And then the angels raised their flaming swords to smite me down, and the horror was complete. I awoke. Again and again and again that awful dream comes to me. Never, never shall I be able to pass the gate, for the soil on the angel garments must ever come from these bloody hands. You need not despair, Jacob Settle. God is good, and his mercy is great. Live on and work on in the hope that some day you may feel that you have atoned for the past. I shall watch with you here, and we shall have no more evil dreams tonight. He made an effort to pull himself together and answered, I don't know how to thank you for your goodness to me this night. But I think you had best leave me now. I feel a weight off my mind since I have told you all. I'll go tonight, as you wish it, I said. But take my advice, and do not live in such a solitary way. Heart, man, heart. There is work in the world for you to do, Jacob Settle. You can wear those white robes yet, and pass through that gate of steel. Then I left him. A week after, I found his cottage deserted, and on asking at the works was told that he had gone north. No one exactly knew whither. 2 years afterwards, I was staying for a few days with my friend Dr. Munro in Glasgow. He was a busy man and could not spare much time for going about with me, so I spent my days in excursions to the Trossachs and Loch Katrine and down the Clyde. On the second last evening of my stay, I came back somewhat later than I had arranged, but found that my host was late too. The maid told me that he had been sent for to the hospital, a case of accident at the gasworks, and the dinner was postponed an hour. I found him washing his hands, preparatory to starting for home. Casually, I asked him what his case was. "Oh, the usual thing. A rotten rope and men's lives of no account. 2 men were working in a gasometer when the rope that held their scaffolding broke. There was about 7 feet of water in the gasometer, so they had a hard fight for it, poor fellows. However, one of them was alive, just alive, but we have had a hard job to pull him through. It seems that he owes his life to his mate, for I have never heard of greater heroism. They swam together while their strength lasted, but at the end they were so done up that even the men slung with ropes coming down to help them could not keep them up. But one of them stood on the bottom and held his comrade up over his head, and those few breaths made all the difference between life and death. They were a shocking sight when they were taken out, for that water is like a purple dye with gas and the tar. The man upstairs looked as if he had been washed in blood. Ugh. And the other? He's worse still. That struggle under the water must have been fearful. One can see that by the way the blood has been drawn from the extremities. Resolution like this could, you would think, do anything in the world. It might almost unbar the gates of heaven. Look here, old man, it is not a very pleasant sight, especially just before dinner, but you are a writer, and this is an odd case. While he was speaking, he had brought me into the mortuary of the hospital. On the bier lay a body covered with a white sheet, which was wrapped close round it. Looks like a chrysalis, doesn't it? I say, Jack, if there be anything in the old myth that a soul is typified by a butterfly, well, then the one that this chrysalis sent forth was a very noble specimen, and took all the sunlight on its wings. See here. He uncovered the face. Horrible indeed it looked, as though stained with blood. But I knew him at once. Jacob Settle. My friend pulled the winding sheet further down. The hands were crossed on the purple breast, as they had been reverently placed by some tender-hearted person. As I saw them, my heart throbbed with a great exultation, for the memory of his harrowing dream rushed across my mind. There was no stain now on those poor, brave hands.
for they were blanched, white as snow. And somehow as I looked, I felt that the evil dream was all over. That noble soul had won a way through the gate at last. The white robe had now no stain from the hands that had put it on. Nuremberg, at the time, was hardly known to the great bulk of the travelling public. My wife and I, being in the second week of our honeymoon, naturally wanted someone else to join our party. So that when the cheery stranger Elias P. Hutcheson turned up at the station at Frankfurt and casually remarked that he was going on to see the most all-fired old Methuselah of a town in Europe, we took the pretty broad hint and suggested that we should join forces. Straightway, Amelia and I found the pleasant benefit. Instead of quarrelling, as we had been doing, we now took every opportunity of spooning in odd corners, and much enjoyed the racy remarks of our transatlantic friend. The castle is seated on a rock dominating the town, and an immensely deep fosse guards it on the northern side. The ditch has not been used for centuries, and now its base is spread with tea gardens and orchards. A little to our right rose the Torture Tower, which was, and is, perhaps, the most interesting place in the city. In one of our pauses, we leaned over the wall of the moat and looked down. Below us was a pretty sight. A great black cat lying stretched in the sun, whilst round her gambolled prettily a tiny black kitten. Elias P. Hutcheson, in order to help the play, stooped and took from the walk a moderate-sized pebble. "I will drop it near the kitten, and they will both wonder where it came from." "Oh, be careful," said my wife. "You might hit the dear little thing." "Not me, ma'am," said Elias P. He leaned over and held his arm out at full length and dropped the stone. It fell with a sickening thud right on the kitten's head, and shattered out its little brains then and there. The black cat cast a swift upward glance, and we saw her eyes like green fire, fixed an instant on Elias P. Hutcheson. And then her attention was given to the kitten, which lay still, whilst a thin red stream trickled from a gaping wound. Suddenly she seemed to realize that it was dead, and again threw her eyes up at us. I shall never forget the sight, for she looked the perfect incarnation of hate. Then she made a wild rush up the wall as if to reach us, but further added to her horrible appearance, for she fell on the kitten, and rose with her black fur smeared with its blood. Amelia turned quite faint, and I had to lift her back from the wall. And then I went back to Hutcheson, who stood without moving, looking down on the angry cat below.
"Well, I guess that's the savagest beast I ever see. Except once, when an Apache squaw had an edge on a half-breed what they nicknamed Splinters. And she followed Splinters more than 3 years, till at last the braves got him and handed him over to her. They did say that no man, white or Injun, had ever been so long a-dying under the tortures of the Apaches."
Whilst he was speaking, the cat was continuing her frantic efforts to get up the wall.
"I do declare that poor critter seems quite desperate. There, poor thing, it was all an accident, though that won't bring back your little one to you. Say, Colonel."
It was a pleasant way he had to bestow titles freely.
"I hope your wife don't hold no grudge against me on account of this unpleasantness."
Then we all went again to the wall and looked over. The cat was sitting on her haunches as though ready to spring. Indeed, the very instant she saw him, she did spring, and with a blind, unreasoning fury, which would have been grotesque, only that it was so frightfully real. Amelia said to Elias P. in a warning voice, "That animal would try to kill you if she were here. Her eyes look like positive murder." He laughed out jovially.
"Excuse me, ma'am," he said, but I can't help laughing. Fancy a man that has fought grizzlies and Injuns being careful of being murdered by a cat.
Here he slapped his pistol pocket at the back of his lumbar region.
Why, soon have you worried, I'll shoot the critter right here.
And so we went on and crossed the little wooden bridge leading to the castle gateway. As we crossed the bridge, we saw the cat again down below us. Hutchison laughed as he looked down at her and said,
Goodbye, old girl. Sorry I endured your feelings, but you'll get over it in time.
We were the only visitors who had entered the torture tower that morning. So at least said the old custodian. The lower chamber where we entered was filled with incarnate darkness. When we came up through the open trap in the corner of the chamber overhead, Amelia held on to me so tightly that I could actually feel her heartbeat. I was not surprised at her fear, for this room was even more gruesome than that below. Round the chamber were many implements of torture, which made one's heart ache to see. Chairs full of spikes, which gave instant and excruciating pain. Racks, belts, boots, gloves, collars, and many, many other devices for man's injury to man. But the central object in this chamber of horrors was the engine known as the Iron Virgin. It was a rudely shaped figure of a woman, something of the Bell order, or to make a closer comparison, of the figure of Mrs. Noah in the Children's Ark. A rope was fastened to a ring in the front of the figure and was drawn through a pulley, fastened on the wooden pillar which sustained the flooring above. The custodian, pulling this rope, showed that a section of the front was hinged like a door at one side. We then saw that the engine was of considerable thickness, leaving just room enough inside for a man to be placed. It was only, however, when we came to look at the inside of the door that the diabolical intention was manifest to the full. Here were several long spikes, broad at the base and sharp at the points, placed in such a position that when the door should close, the upper ones would pierce the eyes of the victim, and the lower ones his heart and vitals. The sight was too much for poor Amelia, and this time she fainted dead off, and I had to place her on a bench outside till she recovered. When we got back to the chamber, we found Hutchison still opposite the Iron Virgin.
Well, I guess I've been learning something here while Madame has been getting over her faint. It appears to me that we're a long way behind the times on our side of the big drink. I guess but I'll get in that box a minute just to see how it feels.
Oh, no, said Amelia. It is too terrible.
I guess, ma'am, nothing's too terrible to the exploring mind. I spent a night inside a dead horse whilst a prairie fire swept over me in Montana Territory. I've not funked an odd experience yet, and I don't propose to begin now.
We saw that he was set on the experiment, so I said, Well, hurry up, old man, and get through it quick.
All right, General, said he. I dare say this old galoot can rise some string and tie me up according to sample.
This was said interrogatively to the old custodian, but the latter shook his head. The American thrust a gold piece into his hand, saying, Take it, pard, it's your pot. When the upper part of his body was bound, Hutchison said, Hold on a moment, Judge. I guess I'm too heavy for you to tote into the canister. You just let me walk in, and then you can wash up regarding my legs. Whilst speaking, he had backed himself into the opening, which was just enough to hold him. Then the custodian completed his task by tying the American's feet together so that he was now absolutely helpless and fixed in his voluntary prison. He seemed to really enjoy it, and the incipient smile which was habitual to his face blossomed into actuality as he said,
Now, Judge, you just begin to let the store down slow on me. I want to feel the same pleasure as the other jays had when those spikes began to move towards their eyes.
Oh, no, broke in Amelia hysterically. It is too terrible. I can't bear to see it. I can't. But the American was obdurate.
Say, Colonel, said he, why not take Madame for a little promenade? I wouldn't hurt her feelings for the world, but now that I am here, having come 8,000 miles, wouldn't it be too hard to give up the very experience I've been pining and panting for?
Once more, the resolution that is born of curiosity triumphed, and Amelia stayed holding tight to my arm and shivering whilst the custodian began to slacken slowly, inch by inch, the rope that held back the iron door. Hutchison's face was positively radiant as his eyes followed the first movement of the spikes.
Well, he said, I guess I've not had enjoyment like this since I left New York. Slow there, Judge. Don't you rush this business.
The custodian must have had in him some of the blood of his predecessors in that ghastly tower, for he worked the engine with a deliberate and excruciating slowness which after 5 minutes began to overcome Amelia. I saw her lips whiten and felt her hold upon my arm relax. I looked around an instant for a place whereupon to lay her, and when I looked at her again, found that her eye had become fixed on the side of the Virgin. Following its direction, I saw the black cat crouching out of sight. Her green eyes shone like danger lamps in the gloom of the place, and their colour was heightened by the blood which still smeared her coat and reddened her mouth. I cried out, "The cat! Look out for the cat!" For even then she sprang out before the engine. Her eyes blazed with ferocity. Her hair bristled out till she seemed twice her normal size.
Darn if the squaw ain't got on all her war paint. You just give her a shove off if she comes any of her tricks on me. Now, easy there, Judge. Don't you slack that rope, or I'm euchred.
At this moment, Amelia completed her feint. Whilst attending to her, I saw the black cat crouching for a spring, and jumped up to turn the creature out. But at that instant, with a sort of hellish scream, she hurled herself, not as we expected at Hutchison, but straight at the face of the custodian. With a yell of sheer terror, the man leaped back, dropping as he did so the rope which held back the iron door. I jumped for it, but was too late, for the cord ran like lightning through the pulley block, and the heavy mass fell forward from its own weight. As the door closed, I caught a glimpse of our poor companion's face. His eyes stared with a horrible anguish, as if dazed, and no sound came from his lips. And then the spikes did their work. Happily, the end was quick, for when I wrenched open the door, they had pierced so deep that they had locked in the bones of the skull, through which they had crushed and actually tore him, out of his iron prison, till, bound as he was, he fell at full length with a sickly thud upon the floor, his face turning upwards as he fell. I rushed to my wife, lifted her up and carried her out, for I feared for her very reason if she should wake from her faint to such a scene. I laid her on the bench outside and ran back.